Hello and welcome to SaltWire today for Friday, May 26th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. One Halifax man is calling for better tenancy laws in Nova Scotia after winning a battle to be renovated. Jeremy Van Den Eyden lives in the north end of Halifax. He pays $790 a month for his one-bedroom apartment that he's had for 5 years. And working as a metal fabricator, he says he can't afford the near $2,000 monthly average cost to live in Halifax. Late last summer, the fight to stay in his home began.
When the landlord gave me an ultimatum that I either was going to face eviction or had to give up my dog Memphis, stating that I had signed a lease that claimed there was no dogs allowed. I pulled out my lease, found out that wasn't true, told them that I had looked at the lease and there was no clause about dogs, and that ended that discussion. 2 weeks later, they moved to evict on renoviction and tried to clear the whole building out.
Effective immediately, his building was under new management and notice was sent out telling everyone they had to be out in 3 months, claiming the building had significant damage and needed extensive repairs. Van Den Eyden believed he and his fellow tenants were being renovicted when a landlord forces tenants out of a building so it can be renovated and generally rented out for a lot more money.
The tenancy board didn't really investigate anything. They took the landlord on its word and basically just went with that. Landlord said we need to do this. The tenancy board said okay, and did not investigate, didn't validate their claims or anything.
He won the right to stay last month with a small claims court decision ruling the renoviction was illegal, but the landlord is appealing the decision. So the fight to keep his home continues, and he hopes his story will raise awareness about better protection needed for tenants. This province does not enforce protections under the Residential Tenancies Act. The other provinces, such as Ontario and BC, have dedicated investigation units that enforce tenancy laws. He says Nova Scotia needs to follow their lead. The latest assault on a Halifax transit driver is renewing calls from the union for better protection for its members. In the most recent incident a week ago today, 2 people were thrown off the bus and snuck back on through the back door. Halifax Regional Police say the boy and the girl walked to the front of the bus and assaulted the driver. It happened at the Halifax Transit Bridge Terminal on Wise Road. The president of the Amalgamated Transit Union 508 told SaltWire by his count there have been 26 violent altercations between city bus drivers and passengers since October. Drivers have been threatened, struck, yelled at, and spit on. In this case, the president says the driver had been punched in the face and left with bruises and cuts. The driver spent most of Friday evening in the hospital. The union leader is angry that the bus didn't have a plexiglass guard between the driver and passengers. It's something drivers have wanted for years. The city says that funding has been approved to equip all current buses with operator safety barriers. It's aiming to begin installing them sometime this year, but the union says it's far too late and immediate action is needed. For almost a year, the union has been pushing the city to come up with a bylaw that lets the transit authority ban problem passengers. The city says that bylaw is coming and will go to council later this year. Students from Kings County Academy are doing their part to help the environment in the valley. Around 70 grade 7 students took on the science project to remove a patch of goutweed at Miners Marsh, a Ducks Unlimited site in Kentville. The students visited the marsh in the fall and saw what it looked like then and took another trip earlier in the spring. They were then visited by a member of the Nova Scotia Invasive Species Council who talked about the different types of non-native species and the troubles they can cause in the province.
Goutweed is an invasive plant. It chokes out biodiversity and native vegetation, so it creates a dense monoculture where nothing else can grow.
I think it's good work. Like, we're digging up invasive species, and in a week's time, we're going to come back to plant native species. So I think we're doing good for the environment and helping our community.
The students uprooted the invasive plant, which originates in Europe and Asia. In just a half hour, they filled 26 garbage bags with the short leafy plant. They will return next week to plant native species in the patch that they cleared out. The 2023 Cat Ferry season kicked off yesterday. The vessel sails between Yarmouth, Nova Scotia and Bar Harbor, Maine. Bay Ferries says there has been considerable marketing efforts put into the service this year, and it's feeling optimistic, noting so far bookings are up much more compared to last year. SaltWire's Tina Camo was there for its arrival.
The Cat Ferry started its season on May 25th. Ahead of the season start, Bay Ferries, which is contracted by the province to provide ferry service between Nova Scotia and Maine, said ticket sales are up this year ahead of last year. As of May 2nd, for instance, there had been 14,556 passenger tickets sold, an increase of nearly 5,400 from the same time frame the previous year. At the conclusion of each month, Bay Ferries will provide a summary on ticket sales for the month and the season. The CAT has attracted the attention of people living in traditional United States and Canadian markets, but it's also caught the interest of international travelers as a means of getting to and from Nova Scotia. International travelers who have booked tickets includes people from such places as Holland, Spain, Germany, England, Australia, France, Belgium, Italy, and Denmark. The province is providing a roughly $17 million operating subsidy for the service this year. The government is also conducting a study of the ferry service to determine its value and impacts. While there is discussion on how much it costs to operate the service, there hasn't been official data on the revenue it generates. As always, Bay Ferries will purchase all provisions for the ferry from Yarmouth and other parts of the province. While the core marine crew of the CAT, by law, is American due to the vessel's U.S. flag, there are Nova Scotians employed. This includes all catering and onboard services, sales staff, the customer service director, the night maintenance team, stevedores, Yarmouth terminal staff, and ferry management in Yarmouth. Until June 26, the ferry will operate 4 days a week. After that, it kicks into a 7-day-a-week service for the peak tourism season. On September 7th, it will go back to a shoulder season schedule, operating 5 days per week. The season ends on October 9th. Nova Scotians traveling on the ferry receive a 50% discount on fares throughout the entire season. This is Tina Camo, reporting for SaltWire in Yarmouth.
It's time for another edition of Wine of the Week. The weekend is here, so let's see what our SaltWire sommelier, Mark DeWolf, is recommending that we drink.
Sometimes as a sommelier, we're guilty of looking for the quirky and different, when really the right wine choice sometimes is just what's available and what's comfy, such as this Chardonnay from the NSLC by Bread and Butter. At under $25, it's still affordable. It's even on sale right now, $2 off. But what I like about it is it delivers what you expect from California. Ripe fruit, a little bit of wood, but some nice acidity in the background, keeping it a little bit fresh too. Great wine for lobster, rich pasta dishes, or even just a simple roast chicken.
And for more wine recommendations, tips, recipes, interviews, and more, go to the Wine and Dine section of saltwire.com. It's time now for a glimpse of today's Thinking Out Loud with Sheldon McLeod. Today, Sheldon is speaking with Phil Gursky, a former CSIS intelligence analyst who has strong opinions about the report into foreign interference by China.
David Johnston says neither of the last two federal elections the outcomes were influenced in any way by the Chinese. Should we take him at his word?
Well, perhaps, but my question would be in return, well, how does he know that? I mean, last time I entered a polling booth, Sheldon, I didn't tell anybody for whom I voted. And I'm going to assume that nobody knows why each Canadian marks an X on the ballot in the way that he or she does. We don't know why people were influenced to vote. Were some affected because of threats from China? Possibly. I don't see how it's at all possible for the Governor General to state that categorically the elections were not affected. We know the Chinese tried to affect them. We know that money went back and forth. We know that they did lobby people to, say things on behalf of China and vote in a certain way. But do we know if it actually succeeded? I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm not sure the Governor General does either. To me, it's a confidence building measure. Yes, our democracy is safe. Yes, we can have confidence in the voting system, but I simply don't understand how an official at that level can make a statement that is so baldly saying that the results, the efforts of the Chinese had no effect. I don't understand how he can say that.
And for Sheldon's full conversation, head to the opinion section of saltwire.com. Time now for the Atlantic Sports Wire, presented by Scott Squires.
The basketball tournament has been something that's been around for a few years and is wildly popular, not only with basketball fans, but with sports fans. Now, the soccer tournament, the TST, is coming. I'm very pleased to be joined by Dan Friel. He's the co-founder of TBT and TST. Dan, welcome. You're down in Louisiana, in New Orleans. welcome to the Atlantic Sports Wire. Tell us, please, about the TST. What's it all about?
I mean, simply put, it's $1 million World Cup style tournament, winner takes all. One team is going to escape with $1 million and bragging rights for a year, and then 31 other teams are going to go home empty-handed. But it's the kind of the offspring of TBT, which we started in 2014, and we're just thrilled to be ramping this up next week in Cary, North Carolina. Winner take all, $1 million, 32 teams, 7 versus 7. What are some other things that you can tell us about the workings of this tournament, how it all is going to play out? Yeah, I mean, I think that simply it's going to be a World Cup style event. We've got 8 groups of 4. We've got teams from literally all around the world. We've got a team from Far East Asia. We've got multiple teams from the UK. We've got teams representing Premier League teams, Wolves and West Ham United. Ryan Reynolds, I know Canada's own Ryan Reynolds' team, Wrexham, is going to be competing in TST. We've got a team of U.S. women that have won multiple World Cups and Olympic medals. We've got teams that basically anyone that is a soccer fan would be intrigued by, interested in. And I think overall it's going to be a great event. We're very, very excited, I think, more than anything else, to test out some of the new rules that we have in place. We're going to utilize what some would call almost a golden goal with a twist. We're calling it the target score time. And during that period of time, every game is going to end on a goal, typically from the run of play. It's going to be amazing to watch, but I think the drama more than anything else, we expect to be very, very high based upon what we've seen with TBT over the years. It just is an event where, as we see in basketball, everybody is competing to win that one prize, and there's nothing else to go home with. Well, Dan Friel, co-founder of TBT and TST, thank you so much for your time today down in New Orleans, Louisiana. We appreciate it, and we're very excited to watch this tournament take place June 1st to 4th in Cary, North Carolina. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. In Halifax, I'm Scott Squires for the Atlantic Sports Wire.
Thank you, Scott. On to weather now to see what's coming up in the weekend forecast. We're going to check in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Happy Friday, Kate. Well, it was another cloudy day around HRM with below seasonal temperatures, but let's not focus too much on today because we have a pretty nice weekend ahead across HRM. This evening, though, mainly cloudy skies, still a chance of showers with the temperature this evening near 8 degrees, but we clear overnight. So waking up to sunshine on Saturday morning, quickly rising from 7 degrees, and a northwest wind tomorrow means most of HRM will climb up to a high of 22 degrees and sunshine forecast throughout the day. And if that's not warm enough, it's going to be even warmer for most of us on Sunday. We'll have a southwest wind. We'll have mainly sunny skies and a high of 28 degrees inland. I really wouldn't be surprised if a few areas maybe get a touch warmer. Now, because the winds will be southwest, it will be cooler along the coast, closer to 15 degrees. But really, I do think most of HRM will get into the mid to high 20s on Sunday. So a beautiful day in store. Now, a cold front does knock temperatures back below seasonal on Monday. So this warm up is short-lived, but there are signs that we'll have warmer temperatures building back in throughout next week. But certainly if you do have any outdoor plans this weekend, the weather looking pretty good overall for the last weekend of May. Have a great weekend. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to saltwire.com. And you can find us on social media. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here Monday. Turn off the noise. Tune in to what matters. What matters is information you can trust. What matters is the news you can use to make life's big decisions. Informed healthcare choices, casting the smart vote, or opening that business. What matters is understanding the world around you. Let SaltWire connect you to what matters with unlimited access to the information you need for only $20 for the first year. Become a member today.